I learned a lot that we can't really discuss on the air, which I know it really kind of sucks for you guys, but it's so nice for me and Chuck, so I'm sorry.
The 0-2.
Um,
Swing and a miss, strike three. Wrap this one up in green and white.
Hello, RailCats fans, and welcome back to the RailCast Talk podcast. He's Chuck Polarek. I'm Kyle Svetich. I might be a little like cross-eyed going on today because right now I have the Colombia versus Brazil game going on, and former RailCat Jesus Marriaga and then former RailCat Guillermo Quintana are playing, but not well. Jesus is playing, and at the moment he's 2 for 3 with a RBI double. And man, I miss that guy. But anyways, Chuck, how was your week and how was bowling?
Speaking of Mariaga, that was definitely somebody that we missed in the lineup last year. Um, and I think that if he had been in the lineup, I think that the story is quite a bit different, to be honest with you. So,
Yeah,
but
it was funny because the commentator right before you got on, I after I watched his RBI double, and these aren't like I'm not talking like these weak contact hits. Like he's smoking the ball. Like he had a nice line drive past the shortstop, a line drive into left field that the left fielder did like a slide but kind of dove for the ball, and the ball was basically hit so hard it fell out of the guy's mitt, and they gave him an error on it, which tomato on that one. But then he hits the hard line drive in between left or right and center field for the RBI double. Um, the commentator's like, yeah, he hasn't played any kind of summer ball in the past 2 years, and I'm not really sure what the manager really sees in this guy. I know he has some connections through whatever league, so maybe that's what it is. And I'm like, oh, come on, dude. I get it. Like that's what it makes me want to dig a little bit deeper and maybe ask when I do reach out to Lamar, like, hey, why wasn't Mariaga? Unless someone knows the answer for me, can just like secretly message me that. I think it's more of a probably visa issue or something along the lines. I think there was something that was explained to me, but I forgot what it was. But Jesus was always that guy that I could have sworn if he would have had one more good year, and maybe this is because they're playing in Arizona, so and right now you got spring training going on, and if there's some MLB scouts out there, and he's only 26, he has a good game, I could see something good out of that. But
yeah, good game. When he was in the World Baseball
yeah,
Classic a couple years ago, he had a really good game where it was like, man, this guy is just unstoppable in the outfield. And I thought for sure. I told him that day because I was trying to talk him into resigning. Apparently, Lamar had talked to him, and he was on the edge. He was kind of leaning towards not signing. And then I said to him, I said, I don't want you to sign with us. I said, I want you to go higher.
yeah.
He says, I just signed today. So I was like, oh, well, all right. I'm still happy. But he's a real good guy. Those are the guys you want to see succeed.
Yeah, no, I
Uh,
agree. I guess enough of my soapbox on that one. So not much this week. Again, as far as transactions, I think it could be a possibility. We're waiting for a couple of these qualifying rounds for the World Baseball Classic to kind of wrap up and see if maybe we're going to pluck some players from that. Um, I did get a little bit of more insight behind the curtain of how um, this league kind of runs a little bit as far as like salary cap and what you can and can't do to a certain extent. I'm not going to get into the bunch of the numbers. It's going to be very bare bones. All that I'm aware of is that the salary cap has gone up, and in the league's eyes, as people may not like it, but the more advertisements that you do get out there, the more money that the teams are be able to get and spend in salary cap. But essentially, um, the salary cap, let's just say $100. is salary cap, right? You got 4 months to spend $100. That's essentially what it is. So if you spend 75 bucks in May, well, by the end of the season, for the rest of the season, you only have 25 bucks to work with. So probably by the time May's over with, you're gonna be cutting a lot of those people anyways. Because you can't spend 75 the next month because then you go over the salary cap. So essentially how that is broken down is I heard some teams divide it by four, the months, divide it up by four, and that's how much you have per month to spend. The prime example I think me and you discussed after I found all this out was let's take a Jackson Valera for example, randomly cut was like, why did that? You know, it could be a lot of speculations, but more than likely, probably they were pushing higher to the salary cap at that point, and they just needed to cut someone, and they weren't doing so well anyway, so they probably just cut the highest person that they saw. So if you happen to see a surprising cut in the league, it's probably to do with the salary cap and not so much the player itself.
Right.
Is the big
Well,
thing.
and it makes this is the other thing that makes sense to me is that sometimes you'll see players released and
Hmm.
you're wondering why the heck didn't somebody pick them up?
Yeah, that
And they're probably not picked up because all of the teams know what the contract is, and that person's probably making too much money.
yeah, and that so it explains a lot in that situation because it's not like I use hockey as an example because they have a hard cap. It's easier to use that. It's not, you have $150 million a year to work with, um, and it's a yearly you sign someone for 10,000 or $10 million. That's only $10 million. It's not like per month that they're taking that, it's per year.
Right.
So it's a bit different than what you would see in MLB or NFL, that kind of, it's not per month, it's per year. So that explains a little bit more on that front. So it's I learned a lot that we can't really discuss on the air, which I know it really kind of sucks for you guys, but it's so nice for me and Chuck. So I'm sorry. I like to keep my I like to play things close to the chest or the vest, as you like to say, and not like to ruin people's careers. But I did find a couple things interesting that I found out that and I don't think it's so much a secret. I think me and you kind of pieced it together a little bit with conversations of players and certain other, just what we've heard, that the RailCats themselves seem very closed off to everyone else in the league. I've heard that there's not a lot of managers that are in the league that really know Lamar, and I think that hinders some recruitment a little bit on his end
Also,
because
might hinder some trading,
trading.
hinder a lot of different things, and
I
I get it. I mean, hey, I don't know that Lamar is necessarily the go out and meet a bunch of people type
mhm.
of guy, but he does have a wonderful personality when you get to talking to him and that and hey, I think that the league's missing out by not really knowing much about Lamar as much as Gary's missing out. So, it I think it kind of comes to bite us in the rear end a little bit, but the other part of it is that we haven't really had the type of seasons for somebody to say, man, Gary really knows what they're doing.
Yeah, and it was another conversation that I also had was it I don't know if you've noticed it a little bit or what the case may be, but the talent in the leagues has seemed to kind of dip a little bit. I think we're starting to see more college players kind of peek their way into the league versus how in years past it was more of a less you would take high-end frontier pioneer guys. And I don't know if that's just because it's Gary in general that we're seeing a lot of this, but it also seems like just around the league, besides like your big name teams, that it's all kind of we're grasping at straws for everyone again.
Um, I think that, it's this year's kind of weird. And last year we had a lot of a lot of foreign
Hmm.
talent that came in. Um, and it was very much a visa team, right? And we saw the how that doesn't necessarily work for us, uh, especially when the Winnipeg stuff, and what have you. And this, I feel like now it's kind of gotten back to a Taggart type team, where it's very uh, young talent, see what you get type of thing. But I think it also has a big Lamar stamp on it, which is not only are you getting young talent, but you're also bringing in guys that have a lot of upside because they've had injuries or had surgeries, what have you. And so I think that it's kind of a mix between the two. It's kind of, hey, he's trying to put something together and make something work. The bad thing is, though, from what I see, is that we're kind of rehashing the same thing again. We really got to have, like we said last podcast, we got to have, if you have seven rookies, let's say seven new guys out of college, the way you're building this team, you have to depend on four of those guys to shine bright. And I don't know that you can necessarily get that.
Yeah, it's a lot of um, hit or miss potentially. I'm just looking to see.
So I'm
Um,
just, you know, I'm looking at these other teams, and we've had discussions about Winnipeg and Cruz,
mhm.
that he's probably going to be the next Torres that ends up making it, to making it to affiliate ball. Um, I feel like a lot of these guys are, uh, in the lower affiliate ranks. They're not making the money, and these independent leagues are getting some showtime, and so these guys are coming, making some money in independent league, and then bumping up to Double A, like Torres did, and he's doing awesome in spring training right now. So MLB knows that we've got good players in this league. I'm just, I mean, look at Milwaukee. Milwaukee is like getting rid of their players that they've signed for the past few
Yeah,
years, and their players are playing on other teams now, which is kind of,
I and I think a lot of that to do with the Milwaukee aspect of it is that how many they basically have a full roster already set. Like
right,
Milwaukee, I think I don't know, I'm just looking at their point streak. How many, I mean, they're loaded. Like it looks like they have a full roster from what they had last year. So I think in a case like a Jose Sermo situation was Jose was probably getting paid boku money, and it's like we got to get rid of this contract because we're going to be over the salary cap by the time it's however they want to plan it out. Hey, we're going to be over the salary cap, so we got to start getting rid of these people, and so you do it for cash to help with alleviate some of that pressure, but they're already at the cap portion of it. So like those are the types of things that you're going to see is with them, they're already at a full roster.
right.
Um,
Well, yeah, but you got a full roster and you're missing two guys that you had for the past couple of years that were solid players for you. You know, you've got another team like Kane County that hasn't really signed anybody, and it's like,
no,
okay,
I
that's crazy to me. You've got really good players that are still out there that haven't been signed. And I was just going through and looking at some of the guys that I really liked seeing on the other teams that were really good players. And I go and I look and I'm like, wow, they haven't been re-signed yet. What's going on here? You know?
yeah, it's it's definitely interesting to see. I mean, it looks like Winnipeg's one is going to, run it back from last year. I mean, uh, they have what? Oh, their pitching staff's a little bit all over the place. But one, two, three players like fielders that aren't returning from last year, and they basically have a full roster. on that front. And I guess that's the kind of thing is like you see Winnipeg and you're like, oh, I can see why they're returning players, right?
Right.
And you see a team like we did last year for the RailCats, and it's just like I can see why we're returning those guys, but like, why are we returning the guys?
Yeah. Yeah.
It,
Well, I see here, like I said before, I see you returning these guys, but the problem is, and these are guys that could play for any team. I'm not saying that they
yeah,
don't have the talent to play in the league. The problem is that you don't have, you've got a number three, number four, number five in the rotation. You haven't got the one and two, but you got a lot of threes or fours. You
yeah,
know, in the lineup, you've got a lot of six, seven, eight hitters, but you don't really have any one, two, three, four hitters. And it's like it's good to bring those guys back, but you haven't loaded up on the things that you failed at last year. You haven't solved those problems yet. At least not from what I see. Now, some of these guys might surprise you. We've looked at some of the names and been like, you know what? Maybe this isn't that bad. But it's without seeing these guys in the association, you really are throwing a dart at the board and
yeah,
for the best. And, maybe we come in and we're surprised. But there's been times where we've had guys that Mondesi, where the guys were like, wow, okay, and then nothing, and you're like, oh, wow, we paid a lot of money for that guy, you know.
yeah. Uh, yeah, I don't. It's just a tricky situation. Let's do a quick update to see if the American Association changed our food yet. If they did, nope, still Ben's Pretzels. So by the way, I went to Walmart yesterday and I walked in. I went, smells like Ben's Pretzels in here, and I turned and there was Ben's Pretzels. So if you're craving Ben's
Walmart?
Pretzels, yeah, Walmart, right there in Valpo.
Oh wow.
Yeah, so
Myers has it out here in Portage.
yeah, yeah, Myers out there has it. So
Yeah, so what you really did was you went in, you said, wow, smells like the RailCats ballpark.
yep. Yeah, we sit on the Progi side, so I
Which
smell
unfortunately, I with a bunch of these companies going bankrupt, I don't see it being Hooters Field. Uh,
it. Yeah,
Joanne
no.
Fabrics Field is not going to work. Big Lots Field is not going to work. Though I do think that Big Lots Stadium would be we are constantly looking for a discount or a deal. So that might actually be pretty good.
Which in all honesty, I'm surprised that they haven't tried selling like the field rights yet.
Right.
If you want to leave the steel yard don't have whatever you want to do, that's perfectly fine. But like, I'm just surprised that you haven't gone out and just said, hey,
You know what? Here's one for you. Ollie's. Could be Ollie's Field at the US Steel Yard.
good
Good
stuff,
stuff.
cheap.
Oh,
Oh no. Well,
we have to laugh. We have to laugh.
yeah, that's it's so hard grasping some straws, man. It really is
Well,
when it
they said Joe said they were having their managers meeting at the end
yep.
of the month. So
I believe they met. It's either it was this week or the last week that they were all in
yeah, so
Chicago.
we got to get together with
Yep.
Joe and hopefully get him on. If we if we haven't burned that bridge with our stupid commentary all the time.
Ah.
Um, but get him on and find out if he's got any special nuggets to share with us. Um, and kind of go from there. You know, but definitely the conversations that we've had about the salary cap, uh, really, some of these teams, it appears, are going for the quick wins,
Hmm.
and then they know that, hey, if we can really pull a far enough lead in the first half, we can cut our people and be able to coast in the second half. The problem is that you need those players to make you through the playoffs. So I don't know that trying to jump ahead Wick in the first half is necessarily going to win. Um, and then you got the ones that aren't necessarily strapped for the money right now. And maybe they throw into something and try to, slow and steady wins the race.
Yeah, I mean, and that could be just the way that the that Lamar and everyone else has kind of figured, hey, that's how we're gonna run this. Is we're going to slot the players in that we can pay by month, and we're not going to necessarily worry about trying to squeeze the finances at the beginning or at the end, and just make it easier throughout the course of the season, which I understandable, but again, I maybe that limits the amount of um transactions that you're able to work with during the course of the year. Constantly cutting and bringing in people and uh playing with their quote unquote livelihoods a little bit could be a major factor.
Yeah, yeah. So there's that. Uh, Outside of baseball, how's everything going with you?
Well, we've decided on a spot for me to finally locate after this.
Closet?
No, it's not the closet. It's not going to be the garage either. We have a sunroom that is attached not to this, but it's on the outside of this ho side of the house, but it's back by the kitchen. But the only downside to it is it's not temperature controlled. So we'll probably insulate it during the winter time and put a AC unit, that kind of stuff out there. So I have a spot for me to do all of my stuff that I need to do for this podcast, and a spot for my son to be playing, or my privacy. So the background will change. That's the other. I've been meaning to use it, but I don't have the correct lighting for it. I do have a green screen that I will eventually be using, which is then essentially I won't have this beautiful backdrop anymore. And it's, I'm talking, this could be in the course of like a matter of like next week we could be flipping this around. We'll probably wait a little bit. Uh, my parents did order the the changing table and the dressers and all that today, so that should be at my house sometime this week. So it's gonna be shoved somewhere in here. So next time I might be just like crammed up against the camera, like, "Hey guys, welcome to this week's podcast where I can't talk today." Um, but it might be something like that. But yeah, everything's going good so far. We're going. We'll see the OB coming up here shortly, and then we'll have our 20-week ultrasound. And I can't believe that we're 4 weeks away from basically being halfway.
That's awesome.
It's kind of crazy how time flies a little bit, It,
Definitely goes quick. Oh,
so
that's
yeah.
good. While you've been dealing with that, I have went through and just finished up Ted Lasso for my
Mm.
second time. Uh, and I think that I might even start it a third time. Um, by far, I'm going to say my favorite show. Uh, and watching it the second time has been very awesome. So, hope to watch it for a third time here if I get some time. And that's what's been tying up me. So, other than being sick and uh, doing other creative things around the house, we don't have baseball yet. It sucks.
You know, I've just been really itching at the bit for baseball, and I'm glad. I know it's spring training, but it's baseball nonetheless. It's just to watch it. It's not even so much to like I care who's winning or losing or who's playing or not. It's just to get back into the rhythm of baseball, back into the mindset of, okay, we're watching the game. Let's play at a chess match. I'm so used to right now. I'm just so used to watching hockey, so it's like everything's constantly going on. I gotta bring back, bring it
Are
back
you
and relax.
are you watching? I had read, or I haven't watched any games yet, but they're doing this where you can question a strike.
Yes, they're implementing the ABS system, the automatic ball strike system, and so each team gets two in a game, and they're only doing it for spring training. They've been doing it in AAA, and they have high success rates with it. So it can only be a pitcher, catcher, or the batter. It can't be out. It can't be outside preference, whatever the case may be. So you only
Right.
get two. If you get it correct, you keep your challenge. If you don't get it correct, you lose that challenge. And typically when you think of balls and strikes and all that other stuff, it's the whole plate. Well, it's more of like a glass plane now, and it's more in the middle of the plate instead of the front of the plate. And they just take the batter stance, and it's basically from the belt to the knee, just depending on however they sit, sort of deal. I think it's a great idea. It brings it sometimes show it's funny because you hear like the commentators talking like a lot of the AAA managers tell their pitchers do not challenge a ball or a strike. Don't do it because pitchers always assume everything's a strike. Typically in that stance you want the catcher to call it because he's the one doing the framework, he kind of knows. So it's always interesting to see like a pitcher do it and he doesn't get it and he gets all frustrated. But it's like you can't say anything. And then if you have something in the bag and you want to mouth off to the umpire, it's like, okay, you're gonna challenge it then? Like, if
Right.
you think it's a strike,
Right.
challenge it or a ball. Like
Yep.
it's so interesting in that aspect of it. And it's not, it's very subtle. It's a tap on the head. They go to the video board. They show it on the video board. You see what you see on TV is what you see at home, and it's just a matter of 30 seconds, and there you go. It works out great. So, I like it. Obviously that's something that'll probably never reach the level we're at, but for baseball sake, it makes it a little bit interesting. There was actually a funny meme or a video of a umpire that day. Everything that they were challenging, he was wrong with. Like if he called it a strike, it was more likely a ball, and the guy challenged it, and he's like, it shows a ball, and he said something along the lines of like, I don't know how that happened, or he was like dishing himself because he's like he was wrong the entire time. He goes, "Holy crap, I'm right!" Like it's just one of those funny kind of situations. So I think it brings a little bit of people know what's going on in the game, and it kind of keeps everyone in check to a certain extent. So
So do you see them implementing something like that in American Association?
I don't think that technology is anywhere close yet.
I was
I
thinking
I
the
I
expense money would be too much.
I think they use the same system that tennis uses, the Eagle Eye or the Hawkeye. I can't remember what they call their stuff, but that's like the same technology that they sort of use on that front of it. But I don't think um at the level that, I mean, just now they're starting to implement like hit track and how far balls and everything are going. I just think they're just so far behind in that. And it's not like behind in the aspect of technology, it's just the money. I just don't think it's not incorporating the MLB yet, so I don't think they're going to really incorporate with the ML, the partner leagues. It's easier to put up pitch clock and have someone run that versus a whole, it's probably going to cost $10,000 to put it in your stadium and run it that way. So,
Right. Well, never know.
yeah, you never know. Next year we might put it in and be like, oh, okay, well, I eat crow now.
Could you, yeah, could you like imagine how quiet we would have to be as fans? I mean,
Eh,
losing everything is challenge it. If you don't like it, have them challenge it. Man, I would have to shut up an awful lot. I don't like that. Yikes.
we sit far enough away. It's fine.
Oh yeah, but I wonder if the umpires will be any better this year. Stuff like that. These are the things that we get to think about because we have no baseball to watch. So sad.
Yeah, it's yeah. Well, Chuck, you got any final thoughts for this week?
Oh, back to Ted Lasso, I guess.
Well, Daredevil Reborn starts back up on Tuesday, so
Well, I saw that too.
I will be patiently waiting to get home from work and sitting down and watching that lovely show because it's going to be so good.
Well, that's it. That's all
That's
I got.
it. All right. Well, that'll
Okay.
wrap it up for this week edition of the RailCats Talk podcast. I hope you enjoy the rest of your week, rest of your evening, whenever you're watching this, and Go Cats.
Jets.
He gets one high in the air. Left field, this one's got a chance. And let's go on a cowhide. Joey Rice.